the initiation was, so Prabhupada asked me that I should invite my mother to come. So I did, and she came. My father wouldn't come, but she came. And again she sat on the chair, and we had the fire sacrifice, and then, so at the end, of course, when Prabhupada gave the beads, and then, so I bowed down to him, and then Prabhupada said, no, you bow down to your mother. So I turned and I got down and I bowed down, and of course I said the mantra of obeisances to Prabhupada. But my mother, was quite, she felt quite uncomfortable having her son bowing down at her feet. And then Prabhupada instructed me that whenever you see your mother, you bow down to her. You offer obeisances. And I used to do that. Sometimes I would go home and visit them. They lived in Connecticut. Once I went there to distribute books to all our family friends. So I would, ring the doorbell, and my mother would open the door, and there was nobody there, but there I was on the ground offering obeisances. So she didn't like it, of course, but actually it was Prabhupada's instruction, and we did it, and we felt closer to Prabhupada, following, and of course the attachment, mother-son family attachment was kind of dissipated by that. It made the relationship more formal. So it was a nice instruction.
At the initiation, he said in our name, but I was afraid at the initiation. I kind of knew that it meant that I'd have to be surrendering. We didn't really know what we were in for. There was no great movement at the time. As I say, there was 12, 14, 16 people around. Prabhupada was very kind, and we were eating and chanting, and no bowing down, no head shaving. A lot of fun. He was like our father, this great Swami sitting in our midst. People were still coming off LSD trips in the early morning kirtans as part of the whole scene. They'd have all-night trips, and the best place to go to the Krishna temple, chant, even if it was a bummer trip, and they'd give you breakfast. So people were coming around. And so Prabhupada, at my initiation, there were all sorts of freaks. The temple was smoking like anything because Janaki brought fruit box wood, pulped wood instead of real wood, fruit box. And we had ghee instead of butter, so it sputtered and smoked all over the place. I'm afraid my old jazz friends are coming into the place I was living and saying, don't get initiated, stay with us. Some Christian shows up saying that this is all what do they call it, paganism, and I shouldn't do it, and he's arguing with me, and I'm kind of being swayed. And the next day, the day of initiation, actually it started off, Jamuna had actually asked me to marry her in Golden Gate Park, and we weren't sure who. We had a number of people who could have married us, but we said we would really like the Swami to do it. So we asked him, would you marry us? And he said, first you must become initiated. So I said, when do you want us to become initiated? And he said, tomorrow. Another one of those reading the mind things, because I knew that inside and viscerally, intrinsically, I knew that it meant surrender. So the tomorrow came, and I had still been hanging out with my other friends, and they were in the temple, and I was calling, I'm coming, and then I'd say, I don't want to do it, and it was like up to the time. they weren't sure if I was going to show. So finally I show. Jamuna's there. We're stringing the beads up to the time, getting fruit box wood, getting ghee for the, instead of, made out of margarine. And 4 of us were getting initiated. Shamadasi. Then there was another woman who had a child. Was that at the wedding? No, I think it was at the initiation. There was a child, and the woman was a really space cadet. She was one of the people, I think, who wanted to marry Prabhupada. And the child's head kept on hitting the floor, bonk, bonk. During the initiation, Prabhupada said his name would be Kaviraj, and he said, "Will be strong, strong baby," because he saw his, and he said to the mother, "Lift him up." So he gives me an R name, and then he says, "No, you will be Guru Das," which was great because I was so frightened at the time that I didn't hear my name anyway. Plus I was photographing it all. I was the ISKCON photographer. And people were on all sorts of psychotropics in the fires there and at our wedding, and at our initiation. So then I said to Prabhupada, "When would you like us to get married?" And he said, "Tomorrow." So it's the same thing. He didn't want to give me time to think too much.
When I did join, I joined just a matter of weeks before Srila Prabhupada arrived. So I'd been doing work, fixing up the temple, fixing up Sankirtan vans, and doing all sorts of work. And when Srila Prabhupada was due to arrive, they rented an apartment for him on Ashbury Street, I believe. And they told me, "Quick, Narnoyan, you have to do something and build an altar for Srila Prabhupada." So I actually went and I took pieces of wood and turned turnings, and I made an altar for Srila Prabhupada. Very simple, but altar, decorated it. So when Srila Prabhupada came, there was an altar, and he asked, "Who has made this altar?" And they said, "Narayan." He said, "Oh, bring him here." Actually, I wasn't named Narayan, I wasn't initiated. He's Nathan Baruch. So I came, and he approved. Actually, but before that time, I'd written a letter to Srila Prabhupada, and he had responded to me with my karma name. Before he actually came to Los Angeles, I wrote and said I wanted to serve Krishna in every way possible. And he wrote back and said, "My dear Nathan Baruch, this is a very rare manifestation. I think you were a devotee in your previous life. To begin your service wanting to serve Krishna in every way possible means you have done devotional service before." He said, "So please continue to do that, chant your rounds, do these services, carve deities." And he gave me actually these blessings through his very first letter, which was a letter which in itself was enough to keep me going for a lifetime.